Hey everyone, it's Andrzej on Software. Just, I don't know, 1 week or 2 weeks ago, we had the RailsEventStore conference. It was the first edition. And during that conference, my main talk was about the vision behind the RailsEventStore, where we are coming from, where we are, and what are the goals for us. And as for the goals, there are certain areas that I have covered. You can watch the whole video. The whole video is actually available at the RailsEventStore.org website, so you can see the whole video because it was like live on Facebook. And so I just want to focus on one part here, and it's about the idea of RailsEventStore starter applications. And when I talk about starter applications, I mean not only something that, I don't know, is focused so much on RailsEventStore itself, but I see RailsEventStore as a piece in a bigger vision, actually. So it's in a way, I see this similarly to as what Rails was. Rails wasn't just a number of libraries. Rails was a whole new approach, new way of building software. We can discuss whether it's good or bad, but regardless of that, it was a bigger vision. Basically, it was probably the kind of the first of the whole next generation of tools for rapid not only prototyping but rapid applications building, ready to be production, for example. So with RailsEventStore, I see it similarly, but with the focus on modularity and with the focus on clean code, the focus on a code we can be proud of. This is the area where I can see improvements, and it's not only about being so emotional about code, but also having code which is reliable, having code that is tested, having code that works and you can trust it. You can build your application from smaller pieces. Okay, but how we can approach the idea of starter applications? So I see them as an educational tool. So I want to provide starter applications, very specific application, which show how to use RailsEventStore. Again, not really about RailsEventStore, it's about the techniques behind it. So how to use domain-driven design, how to use event sourcing, and how to use CQRS and as a combination of those things. And first of all, I think we can start this discussion. Which would be, or how should the starter applications look like, and what is actually their purpose and how they should work. So as for which should they be, just to give you some examples, it can be, for example, a very simple CRM, so a customer relations management system, where we can provide some build an application where we can enter some data about certain customers, have some life cycle of, like, for example, you have a lead, then it becomes a customer, then you can make some notes about this customer, make some processes around customer. So this is like the CRM. Then, for example, I can have a blog application. So the classical DHH, as Rails was promoted, I can imagine building a starter application with blog. I think building a blog would be educational, because people mostly know how to build a blog, but then they can look at the code and they can easily see, okay, how it was implemented using domain-driven design, for example. However, I don't think it would have a practical usage of people actually using this. And with the idea of starter apps, I see education as one goal, but I also would like it to be actually something of value, even to the point where people can just fork it and use it, and customize it and extend it on their own. Also to the point where here as Arkansas can build some of those domains or modules or services and expose API through which you can send us commands, as in CQRS, commands which require some changes on our side. We host it, we deploy it, we handle all of this stuff, and then we expose the event only for you. So you have an instance of this application, and you can poll our special endpoints and get the events, and then you can build all the reads as you like, assuming that the writes are mostly under, they are looking in a way that it's enough for you. Otherwise, you would just fork it or you go your own. Okay, so I mentioned CRM, I mentioned blog. I can imagine a social network application, but that's usually huge. But I can imagine a simple, a very simple version of Facebook, for example. Then a very specific piece. So instead of building a whole social network, let's just focus and build a starter application, which is all about the feed as in Facebook or whichever tool like that. I think very often we need to build feeds. And we can show how to do it. And again, that can be something also exposed as not only educational, but also people can fork it and have it as part of the application. Feed is usually just part of the application. But also I can imagine that if for some people who just don't want to deal with that, we can expose the API and let people buy a license or something like that and just use it and rely on our hosting here. So it's a feed. When I talk to people who work on financial application, accounting applications, building a ledger is an interesting piece. Similarly to feed, it's just a piece of an application. Probably it's mostly a read model, but we can show how we build it, and people can get inspired and learn from that, hopefully. Then there is the idea, for example, of project management applications. So I don't know, building some very simple version of Asana. Or Trello. Then we can go in building a simple to-do application. That's classic. Things like Nozbe, Todoist, or obviously in the simpler versions. Probably there is no way we can compete with those big tools. It's just mostly to create a starter application, probably. Yeah, so I think that's it. So I would like to kind of ask you, I think, obviously, those of you who are in the Rails community, it might be easier for you to have some candidates, what makes sense, what you would possibly use. If you don't use Rails, then probably it's a little bit out of scope of what we can offer to you. But let's say that you can imagine that someone in your language, in your environment, creates something similar. You would have the idea of starter applications, which I would like to know. So if you can tell me on Twitter probably or somewhere else, if you can tell me, or on Facebook, what would be a good starter applications for your next needs if you wanted to start projects from scratch. So that would really help me because I'm just not sure what's currently popular building. Like there was a phase where we all built social network applications, then we all built some kind of Uber 4X applications, CRMs, blogs, and so on. So I'm not sure what's the current hype for. And what do people need mostly? I think that's it. Thanks for listening, and see you and hear you in the next episode.